Hi, my name is Kay, and I will be discussing to you a topic concerning garden as a natural spaces. Garden as a natural spaces. Gardens are different to most attractions in that they cannot offer a standardized product. The image escape is in a state of constant transformation because nature interacting with anthropogenic actions creates and shapes a garden. A tree may have grown naturally in a location or may have been transplanted there by a gardener. Conversely, a self-seeded plant may have been overlooked by a gardener or may have been deliberately left in situ as part of the design. A species that may be indigenous to an area may have been become naturalized or reintroduced. For example, the genus Magnolia was once naturally abundant in Britain but has had to be reintroduced by the gardeners. The wind and animals as well as people have carried out hybridization of plants, and the actions of gardeners as well as climate influence the shape and size of the flora. For these reasons, gardens must be considered as social natural spaces. Natural environmental explanations for this phenomenon include first, the temperate climate experienced as a result of Britain's position on the westerly edge of Eurasia and the warming effects of the Gulf Stream. It provides a good growing environment. Southern England, for example, has a growing season of 9 or more months. Second, the distribution of glacial drift has created frequent changes in the underlying solid rock and consequent variation in soil types, enabling a wider variety of plants to grow. Finally, Thompson suggests that repeated glaciations led to the depletion of the range of natural flora, which encouraged the enrichment of gardens by plants brought back by Britain's long history of colonial expansion and exploration. This final example further illustrates the problems of distinguishing the natural from the social dimensions of gardens. Whilst on the one hand, a garden can be influenced by the surrounding physical context, its topography, the soil type, macroclimate and microclimate, example given, a frost pocket at the bottom of a slope. On the other, its social location influences the number of residents and tourists within reasonable traveling distance and its ability to attract staff. Its position will also determine the level of competition from other gardens or attractions and whether collaboration in marketing or other aspects of management is possible. Maintenance is essential in any attraction, but planning a maintenance regime in gardens where there is a constant process of growth and decay and where nature and people interact is more challenging. Grass mowing, for example, will need to be carried out frequently if the weather has been mild and wet, but needs to be done on dry days, and this is the time when more people are likely to visit. Furthermore, routine tasks such as mowing and hedge cutting require machinery that can detract from the ambience of a garden. Other manual tasks, such as planting and pruning, have less impact, and many visitors see this as an opportunity to speak to the gardeners and obtain advice or information. Gardens are subject to fashion and the changing needs for visitors, but changes initiated by management can require longer time spans than when using man-made materials. Whilst smaller plants can be quickly incorporated into a design, a mature hedgerow cannot be and takes time to develop. Over the long term, the appearance of the garden can change naturally. For example, as trees grow, their impact aesthetically in a landscape can be beneficial or detrimental. They may also force out other planting through their uptake of water from the soil or create shade in which sun-loving plants cannot develop. Nature can also have an impact over much shorter time scales. Dutch elm disease is a fungus spread by a beetle that can reach epidemic proportions proportions. So in southern England, 20 million trees were lost to the disease between 1971 and 1980. So then in October 1987, a storm swept England, having a devastating effect on gardens. A further 20,000 trees were destroyed overnight at Wakehurst Place in Sussex. So heritage gardens may find it harder to grow the plants associated with the initial design or the period of the property, which may make their conservation objectives difficult to achieve. So less predictable, weather may also result in greater fluctuations of income for owners, making investments in the garden more problematic. So more immediate impacts may come from the visitor's behavior. So grass paths are seen as particularly vulnerable, and the soil after exceptionally wet or dry weather may become severely compacted. To ease the movement around a garden may therefore require either the replacement of grass with hard surfaces or the use of intensive management techniques developed originally in the sports turf industry. So visitors may become unsatisfied with their visit. To visit, for example, there are empty flower beds due to unsuitable planting conditions. Similar feelings may be aroused by brown rather than green grass, tender plants destroyed by early frost, and plants damaged by the geographical spread of pathogens or pests. Gardens are social spaces not only because of the work of the gardeners that create and maintain them, but also in the way that visitors experience them. The non-natural infrastructure of gardens, including car parks, tea rooms, toilets, as well as the interpretation, plant labeling, etc., are all aspects of the socially mediated environment. So too are intangible aspects such as the helpfulness of staff, and the welcome that visitors perceive. So gardens have diverse meanings to different people. Heatherly 2002 showed how hard and soft landscaping and appropriate interpretation in the Kadijam Aura Garden. In the Royal Botanic Gardens, Sydney was able to demonstrate the indigenous community's connections with the site. Prior to 1788, the land where the Botanic Gardens now stand was home to the Cadigal people, but this had never been acknowledged in the gardens. So the interpretation included a 50-meter long storyline describing the city's history from the perspective of its indigenous population. Heatherly's research showed that whilst many visitors did not go specifically to see the Kadijam aura, they were interested in learning about the indigenous heritage of the garden and could recall most of the objectives of the project. In the southwest of England, the lost gardens of Heligan have been restored whilst the work was being carried out. The nature of the lives of the people who had lived and worked on the estate over the previous 400 years emerged. The association between the discovered artifacts and the past produces a sense of place for visitors in the present. So Cannell 2004 suggests that this creates a social, historical, and cultural context and gives meaning to the garden beyond its essential charm as an environment or visitor attraction. So nonetheless, guarded visiting usually occurs with the companionship of family or friends. Cannell's survey in Britain confirmed 85% of visitors were not alone and that about half of these were with a partner. 11% of respondents were in organized groups and 13% of visits were part of a family with children. In Britain, gardens have the lowest number of child visitors of all attraction types. So although as noted above, this is not necessarily the case in other cultures.